Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our session on tonight. Thanks for tuning in to another week of Conversations with a Counselor. And tonight we will be talking about breaking free from addiction. I am Crystal Bullard. I will be the facilitator for tonight. And I'm joined by a few special guests, and I'm going to introduce them one by one. First, my colleague, Omari Mitchell. He is a licensed clinical addiction specialist. He is also a coach and ref for high school basketball after hours, and he is the dad of one fur baby, Cove Mitchell. And then we have Elder Sharon, who is a believer of Jesus, a wife, a mother, a daughter, educator, and a friend. And she has been delivered from drugs for over 13 years. And then we have, not last but not least, Deacon Rankin, who is a professional painter, a father, grandfather, and has been delivered from drugs and alcohol for 30 years. And so, again, tonight we are going to talk about breaking free from addiction. And so, let's get into it. When it comes to addiction, there are a lot of schools of thought on what addiction is. But for the purpose of our conversation tonight, Omari, I would like for you to give us a definition of what addiction is.
Okay. All right. So first off, thanks everybody for having me, the invitation to come speak and share tonight. Um, so addiction, I guess in a nutshell, can be seen as the act or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or an activity. Um, a lot of times we see addiction as, specifically being directed to drugs, alcohol, gambling, but it's more so an addiction to um, any kind of life related experience. People are addicted to food, there's addictions to working out. Um, it's really anything that draws that person in. And addiction isn't necessarily always a bad thing, but it's the extent to which that addiction is, I guess, impacting your life. So if you think about it, you know, people can be addicted to church. You can be addicted to, your religion, addicted to being a great father, a great mother. Um, then you have addictions like exercise and things, but it's just at what point does that addiction kind of bleed over into causing you maybe more harm than it is good?
Okay, thank you for that. So, continuing on with an extension of what is addiction, would you say that, because again, with this, there are a lot of different schools of thought, would you say that addiction is a disease or a choice?
um, that's one that's often, kind of debated. That's kind of like, you know, politics, religion, all those things. I think that addiction um, is definitely a disease. Um, I think that, there's obviously chemical changes, that take place in the brain um, that rewire a person's brain. Um, and it causes them to, in a lot of ways, become dependent on, said substance or behavior action. Um, at the same time, that initial uh, experience comes from a choice. Um, some people argue, that you don't necessarily choose to have uh, cancer the same way that a person will choose to use a drug. Um, but we all know what we should and shouldn't do. So we might find ourselves, if you got a bad diet, if you smoke, you know, those are all things that could lead to cancer, lead
Right.
to disease. So the same way that if you try a drug, you never know exactly what direction you're going to take after that. Um, and then that's kind of where the disease model comes in. Um, there are things that people are kind of genetically predispositioned to. So they don't even know going in. They make that decision to use a drug or something for the first time, and you know maybe they had a grandfather, grandmother they never met that had that kind of addiction, that that a gene that's kind of in the background. Um, so it's a little bit of both. Um, that's that's kind of towing the line. I don't want to say one way or the other, but I definitely think it's a little bit of both.
All right. So you spoke about different factors, um, or you talked about factors. What are some other factors that can go into addiction? You said genetic predisposition. So
Hmm.
we know that in our bloodline or in our family, if they're our parents, our grandparents, great grandparents, whoever in our bloodline, may have used substances. Now that predisposes us
Hmm.
to the possibility of falling into addiction should we choose to try a substance. But what are some other things that can lead to um, addiction?
I think a lot of it is environmental. Also, um, a lot of times I don't. People find themselves uh, in that bout with addiction when there's like a whole host of other things going on, in their life that they're having to kind of deal with. Um, so a lot of that is, environment, relationships with people that you keep, um, places that we spend our time or we go to, um, you know, stressors in life, all those things um, play a role in, you know, addiction for people.
Yeah. So what we know is that addiction is not, it doesn't look the same for everybody,
Hmm.
right? And we also know that no one is immune from it. And I think, in talking about how do people fall into it, now was a wonderful time to hear from our special guests. I'll choose Miss Sharon. You can start first to just share with us, what your story is.
Okay. So mine definitely, I believe, was environmental because I was always from a young kid up after seeing, the stuff in school about if you smoke cigarettes, you're gonna die, and I would go home and hide my mama's cigarettes, that kind of thing. And I grew up being if we went anywhere, I was a designated driver of that person. Years later, um, I got with my oldest son's father, my high school middle school sweetheart. Um, and I just wanted to be involved in his world, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. It took us so long to get together, and now you missing stuff is happening. I want to know what's going on, and so that's how it started.
All right. Deacon Rankin, would you share for us what led to um, your addiction?
Well, mine started actually when I was about 9 years old. I took my first drink. Um, with my life was it was normal. My whole family drunk, you know, um, from my grandmother to my mother, my sisters, my brothers, everybody around me in my community, they drunk. They either smoke pot or they drunk. So with me, it was normal. It seemed like that's what everybody done. And it started, got drunk first time at 9, but then I stopped. And then when I was in sixth grade, I smoked my first joint. And after I smoked that first joint, I started chasing that high again, that first high. And then, from that point on, it was a for me because when I took that first drink, it, like he told me, it triggered something in me because it was passed down from generation to generation. And most people can take a drink and then be done with, but me, it wasn't. It wasn't that simple. And I would, from smoking marijuana to snorting cocaine, from snorting cocaine, smoking crack, from smoking crack to taking pain pills. And in over a period of time, I didn't realize it took. I didn't realize that it was wrong. I mean, it was just something that we did and that I done. But it took me to realize that there wasn't a normal situation. There wasn't a normal habit. I mean, a normal way of living. Um, at that point.
Okay. I have some other questions, but I'm gonna hold them for you um, for right now. But I want to talk about something that you said, Deacon Rankin, Omari, and I want you to chime in here. Um, or he said, he tried one thing and then he tried another thing and another thing, and what I was hearing in that was tolerance building. And so, can you kind of speak to that and how that works with the brain?
Uh, yeah. So like, I guess the best way to kind of describe it is like with anything else. Over time, we as people can grow bored of things. Um, you know, the same way that the the pastor is not going to preach on the same topic, every Sunday. They got to come up with different sermons. They got to come out with different kind of topics just to talk about. Our brains work the same way. So over a period of time, like you talked about chasing that first high, um, when you use a drug for extended period of time, your mind starts to grow bored of it, and you don't get that same reaction that you previously did. And then so you find yourself either increasing, the amount that you're using, or you know, trying to find alternative ways to get high, to have a different experience. Um, and so that's the simplest way I can kind of put in the tolerance you know, description.
Okay. And so, let's talk a little bit about like what the process of change looks like. Like when people are in addiction, the wheel, the stages of what it looks like in addiction or throughout. What are those stages? Can you um, like educate us on that?
Yeah. Um, a lot of times, people, uh, we're the last to kind of realize maybe that, there is a problem or that something's going on. So, you might have your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother kind of telling you like, you know, you acting a little funny, you know, you lost weight, you haven't been around as often. Um, and we hear those things, but when you find yourself kind of focused on that addiction, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. So you might be in a pre-contemplation stage of, all right, I'm hearing all these things. There might be some truth to it, but I still want to do what I want to do. And then you go into like a contemplation stage where maybe you lost a job, you lost your girlfriend, your boyfriend, uh, your dog ran away, and you start thinking like, all right, I might have something to do with this. It might be my actions that are causing these things to happen, and that I need to correct. So then you kind of move into that contemplation stage, um, and then after that, you find yourself in the action stage where you decide, you're sick and tired of being tired, um, and so then you want to take steps to, improve your situation. So you'll go to treatment, go to church, getting involved in the community, self-help groups, all those things. Um, and then it's the maintenance period, like, what Sharon and Mr. Rankin are in right now. Um, that maintaining your sobriety, doing all the little things to keep yourself on track, checking in with yourself, um, having good support groups, all those things.
So hearing that, Miss Sharon and Deacon Rankin, um, do you think you went through any of that type of process when you were walking through addiction? Did you have those moments where you were like, yeah, and I think Dinka Reagan, I may have heard you say this because you said, I thought it was normal, thought it wasn't nothing wrong. So that kind of sounds like that pre-contemplation stage where you weren't ready. But did you get to a point where, or what got you to the point to where you started to recognize, yeah, something's not right here, and I need to do something? And either
Well,
of you can
oh, well,
go ahead.
for me, it was my wife. She would always kept telling one thing I liked about her. She didn't beat me down about it, but she would tell me, "Baby, uh, you need to stop. You need to stop. You need to stop." So time go on. I had went to rehab centers. I have started trying to go to church. I have done doing a whole lot of other things, but for me to stop, two things had to happen. One of them I had to realize, well, three actually. One of them I had to realize that I had the problem. Anybody can tell me that I got it, but until I realized I had the problem, it was just like he said, it was going on deaf ears. And the second thing was that, I realized it wasn't normal for me to do that. And the third thing, I call them the six pack. Six guys. I was in the liquor house, and I had got high, and and these guys were beating somebody up, and I knew these guys when they was in Pampers, and they had got teenagers. I touched one of them, and they turned on me, and they beat the food out of me. I mean, they whooped me good. And the guy in the liquor house, he drug me in, and then they left. And then I walked down, walking down the street, walking. I mean, the liquor house was maybe about 5 minutes from my house. And I walking down the street. The Lord, the same way we are talking now, the Lord spoke to me. He said, "I took my hands off of you long enough to let you know that I'm through playing with you. Say, choose you this day who you gonna serve." That's exactly what he said to me. I went home. My wife was asleep. I tapped on the shoulder. I said, "Baby, I'm through." He said, "I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that." He said, "You weren't going to tell me that?" I said, "Yeah, so I'm through." Sunday morning, before she got ready to go to church, I was already dressed. And from that point on, I think I messed up once. For a whole month, I was clean. But one time I messed up, and that thing broke my heart because I hadn't drunk nothing, haven't smoked nothing or anything. And it broke my heart. When it broke my heart, that's when I knew I was done. And that was 1994. And I haven't took a drink since then. But I did, after that, all of that, I did get hooked on pain pills. I can tell that later or share now.
You can share it now.
Okay. Well, I was in church, head deacon. I remember head deacon of the church for years. I mean, for maybe about, I think, about 7, 8 years, head deacon or whatever. And I hurt myself, hit my back. And they had gave me some pain pills to take, not thinking, you know, pain pills, my sobriety. I just take one, I break it in half, take one, ease the pain a little bit. But then it got to the point where I wasn't hurting anymore, but I was still taking the pain pills. I got all the way up to taking 13 pain pills a day or more. And then I had a doctor that he was describing me 120 Percocets and 80 Oxycontin a month. I mean, I had to tell him, hold up, man, I'm taking way too many pills. Leave the, I take the Percocet, but leave the oxycontin. I'm not taking with the oxycontin. But then I guess with '05, no, actually 2011, my pastor came. She said, "Are you ready?" See what she and I didn't know she knew. She said, "Are you ready?" I said, "Ready for what?" Said, "Get rid of those pain pills." I said, "Yes, I am." And I went in rehab for 28 days, and I haven't took anything since. I had shoulder surgery, and I was so scared that I said, "Lord, I don't want to take these pills." But the doctor said, "Well, you have to take it because you're gonna be in so much pain." But I managed to manage that when it would not. I wouldn't go overboard with it. Matter of fact, I gave them to my sister. I said, I will call you when I need one. Or, if I need something, I will call you and you just give it to me. So that way I didn't want to uh, pay no games with that, because it don't take much to believe it or not to mess up to slip backwards. That's why, I always be careful. I maintain my sobriety by I always keep myself accountable.
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
Miss Sharon, did you have anything to add?
Um, yeah, I think for me, um, as I look back on it now, my addiction was more him than the drug, because I didn't use except with him. You know what I'm saying? We could be amongst a bunch of people, you know what I'm saying? And everybody could be smoking, but I ain't smoking. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I only smoke with him. And then when it got to the point where he would disappear, and I found that the one or two times that I did go out on my own to try to find something, it left me in dangerous situations. But once, like I said, then we fell into, of course, domestic violence and abuse, that kind of thing. And once he was removed, once he was gone, it was like, okay, you can get back to yourself. You can get back to who you are. And I'm like, this isn't me. So I knew I didn't, that's wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted. And once I, said that's not what I want, and he was actually gone and removed, it was like God took the very taste from me.
Yeah. All right. So, um, hearing that, um, I want to kind of ease into like recovery because you both have kind of spoken on it in one way or another. And so, Omari, would you say that relapse is a part of recovery?
Um, I think it definitely can be. Um, yeah, kind of picking off where Antonio was talking. Um, relapses, lapses, they do happen. Um, Oftentimes they happen, more often than not. Um, but at the same time, I think the biggest thing about recovery is, like he was saying, holding yourself accountable. Um, so even when that relapse does happen, um, you shouldn't just look at it as, oh, this is a part of my recovery. Um, you got to hold yourself accountable. Ask, why did this happen? Maybe what kind of situation did I put myself in to allow for this to happen? Um, and then, like he was saying, you take the steps necessary, to um, be mindful of your recovery. Um, like he was saying, whatever that might be for you, advocating for yourself at doctor's offices, um, because if you don't, they're just going to they'll treat you like every other case really that comes in that might have a similar symptom, um, but without knowing, there is that history there. So you always have to advocate for yourself, speak up for yourself, um, and if you do have those lapses, you know understand that, okay, this is something that happened. Don't dwell on it, but take the steps that you need to hopefully prevent it from happening, in the future. Um, And then one thing that Sharon said that really stuck out to me was not being addicted so much to the drug, but addicted to, you know, the person,
Mhm.
that you might be using the drug with. Um, and I think that's like a big thing looking at addiction as a whole. None of us is necessarily addicted to beer, to cocaine or anything like that. But it's just something about that substance that puts us in a place that we become addicted to. Um, just like I said, that's how people become addicted to exercise, you know, because, you know, nobody likes feeling sore, but you enjoy those results when you look, see yourself in pictures in the mirror. Um, you go to church, you can become addicted to religion because of how, the pastor's message makes you feel, how that choir sings. It's all about how something makes us feel and trying to get that feeling back, like that first high.
And would you say that that still goes back to the brain
Hmm.
and the hormones that are released
Right,
whenever we have that feel good feeling?
right, right,
We,
exactly.
we- um, so there are a lot of um, like myths out there about addiction, and this is a time where I want you to kind of bust some of those myths, Amari, for us. And feel free to add your own, but um, a couple that I thought about. One is that people who use drugs lack moral principles or willpower and can just choose to stop. I think this may have been addressed indirectly throughout the conversation so far, but I want to pull it out. And so, like, I want you to speak to that. And then the other is that some people think, oh, I can just do it this one time, and I can't get addicted off doing it this one time. I want you to speak to that. And again, bust as many myths as you can, come up with for the people, because we want to bring awareness. Again, we want to break stigma. We want to keep this conversation going, and there are a lot of misconceptions out there around this topic and around addiction. And so, let's set some people free tonight.
Okay. Um, well, going off of that, the first one that you mentioned is that, the idea of somebody maybe lacking willpower, or, you know, it being just a matter of stopping. Uh, I don't, I don't see it that way. Um, just because, even looking at it from just like the book perspective, going back to the brain, it's not that easy to just stop, something. Um, no more different than, you know, year after year, you watch your favorite football team um, underperform, but, you still hang up maybe Cowboys things in your home because you become, you become, uh, a diehard. You ride or die with your team.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of times, like for people who on the outside looking in, of someone who's dealing with addiction, they maybe don't understand, you know, that it's commitment, even if it's in you're not committed to, the most positive kind of thing. Because, oftentimes, if I try something over and over and over and over and I don't get it, I'm eventually going to stop. Someone who is addicted to a substance will try over and over to get that substance, to get that high continuously, and, never give up. Like Antonio was talking about, you imagine you try a drug all this time chasing that first high. and you realize you're not getting it, but you're still continuing to do it, you know, that there shows that's that's a matter of willpower, even if it's not the positive use of willpower. So that just goes to show just the influence that a substance can have on a person. Um, that becomes your sole motivation, um, and that's what makes, recovery and everything so impressive. Sustaining it. When people are able to do that, because there was a time that they were that focused on getting that drug. Um, the idea of you know not wanting to quit. I don't think that anyone who's ever been addicted to anything will tell you, you know, that was their goal. I don't think that anyone goes into it looking to get addicted um, in the same way that they want to quit, but it's just a matter of kind of, figuring out what steps to take to be able to. Um, Another one is the idea of hitting rock bottom. You got to hit rock bottom before you can find, um, recovery. And that's one that I kind of want to kick to, Mr. Rankin and Miss Sharp. What are y'all's thoughts on that? Do you have to hit rock bottom before you can, get into recovery?
Hmm. Again, for me, I don't know if you have to hit rock bottom. I don't think you have to hit rock bottom. I think enough has to happen though that you come to yourself. Because even if I say, okay, I was addicted to him and wanting to be a part of his life, and because I hated how the drugs made me feel, and I definitely hated how it made him act. So I know it wasn't the drug itself. So even the fact that I stayed when I knew it was violence and I knew it was, I maybe was chasing that feeling that we had when we was 13, or that feeling that we had when we first got back together, and just wanting to be a part of his world. But then, like I said, seeing and looking and seeing that, okay, being a part of this world ain't all it's cracked up, ain't all it's cracked up to be. It ain't what I thought. And I guess finally recognizing that, and like I said, and having those things, having it removed, not by my own will, but because he got locked up. Because even after he got locked up, even though I wasn't using the substance, I was still going to see him locked up, all that kind of, all of that. And I was clean from drugs, but I still was at the point with him. And then what broke it for me was on my birthday, he had been locked up maybe a couple of years. And um he called me fussing first thing in the morning. And I'm like, I can't believe you fussing at me on my birthday about something stupid. And at that point, I made up in my mind. I went and filed divorce papers, and I was done, because it was something that I knew that I would never get that what I was looking for from him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I put it like this for me. Everybody rock bottom is not the same. So my rock bottom was 6 guys whipping my tail. Someone else rock bottom might be, something simpler than that. So, well, I could say, yeah. I mean, depending on the person and their rock bottom, because if you don't come to a point where you say enough is enough, it will never be enough, because you will never see um, that what you're doing is not normal. So the rock bottom had to be, you got to find your own rock bottom, whatever it may be. Because if you don't be down, how can you look up?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense. You got to be able to come to a point where you realize, like, I got to have some help. I got to get God in this. I got to look up somewhere beyond me, because what I'm doing is not, I'm at a place where I can't go down no further. I can't do nothing but come up for where I'm at. So yeah, to me that would be, yeah. I feel like sometimes you have to. Some people have to hit that bottom because see, if they don't, you always have some people that they can get to a certain point, but then someone else to come and rescue them, or something that happened that changed their way of thinking that okay, I'm fine now. I can go back doing what I was doing. They can come up with an excuse that yeah, I this happened to me, but I came out of that. You know, you know,
Right.
I was locked up in jail, but I got freed from, so I can go back doing what I was doing. Until that point come where okay, now you know it's the floor, and you can't go no lower. So what are you gonna do? So yeah,
I think that's a big one that you hit on, that point of everybody's rock bottom. It's not going to look the same. Um, and it sounds like in both of y'all situations, you came to the realization that um, everything that you had maybe given to the addiction, um, and everything that the addiction had taken from you, um, it wasn't a even trade, right?
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely
yeah,
not even. Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So um we're on the wrap up part of this, but like um Amari, can you list out, and also Deacon Rankin and Miss Sharon, you can think about your own experiences and chime in too if something comes to you. But like, let's just, for those who are at home and maybe um know someone that they're wondering about or concerned about, or definitely or maybe someone is personally struggling and they just need to hear, right? What are some signs that a person may be addicted or dependent to a substance?
Um, I think obviously you think about like visual stuff. Um, so if somebody's using, you'll see changes in maybe like their eyes, you know, um, pupils dilated, things like that. Either really wide, pinpoint, if it's like recent use. Um, Maybe they don't come around as often. You kind of lose touch with them. Um, when they are around, you know, they're not really there. Like you can tell they're not really present with you. Um, I don't know if you see them like, different things in their life start to take a dive, relationships, their home life, work life, uh, all those things. They're not keeping themselves like they used to. Um, you know, because one thing you can always pick up on is when they start looking a little, a little raggy, a little bit more shabby than usual. Especially if they've been that person to always be well kept and manage themselves. A lot of times that's the first thing to go because that's one of the first things you lose sight of. Um, but yeah, weight loss, all those things.
Okay. Would you say behavioral changes would be a part of it too?
Yeah,
Um, or like mood, um, things like that.
yeah. So somebody becomes kind of agitated more easy. Um, the slightest little thing might set them off. Um, you know, they're you know ghosting you, so they don't return your call or they don't respond to your text messages.
Just
Um,
sharing, you laughing. Was that a part of was that a part of your routine?
No, well, isolation back then was, but I live in the country now, so when people say that, I'd be like, I'm not, what I'm saying? But yeah,
Oh
isolation
man.
is definitely a part because you don't want anybody to know, first of all, what you're doing. You don't want anybody to know what you're doing. And even though, like I said, I still got my hair done, I'm still going to get the micros, and he be fussing, talking, you spending money on that. And yes, I'm still, but I probably was a size 26 and dropped down probably to about 12. So you can't hide that. You know what I'm saying? You can't hide that. But so much. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
All
It's
right.
no show. Physically, it is.
Dick Rankin,
Yeah.
did you have something to say?
Well, and also the people they hang around. You start seeing them hanging around different people. The people they
Mhm.
hang around, they might not even. You might look at them and you might not notice them getting high or them using, but the friends that hang around is using, and you can tell that the friends is using. No, 9 times out of 10, people that don't use don't hang around people that do. And then if they start hanging on, um, their response to you changes. Like you might ask them a simple question, or you might notice that one day they might like they high, so you high, and they go slap off on you. Then you know that
Mhm.
okay, it's a problem there. I mean, you just ask a simple question. That mean you hit something that they tried to hide from you, and then the exposure that's coming, and they don't want that to happen. And like they going to school, their grades drop, and if they got girlfriends and boyfriends or whatever, they don't have them no more. And the ones they are dating now is ones that they are getting high or whatever. So yeah, there'll be red flags for you to start. Okay, it's time for you to have a conversation. Because you have really changed your people, places, and things have changed. When you used to
Mhm.
go out, now you're going out all the time, you know, and making excuses why you're going out, and always, when you have always have money, now you broke all the time. Where's your money going? When you were paying your bills on time, then your bills was falling behind. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the guy is going somewhere,
So, being a therapist, I have to pose this question to, it's going to be to you, Dick Rankin and Miss Sharon. Um, in the process of, or when you were in addiction, would you say that you were experiencing any mental health problems during that time? Was there a connection between your mental health and your substance use at any point? And that could
yeah,
just look like anxiety or depression, and not, or any type of of problems like that. Not necessarily to a clinical level, but a lot. Sometimes, oftentimes, we have co-occurring things that happen. So a lot of times, it's substance use and mental health that can suffer at the same time.
I think for me, the mental stress of dealing with domestic violence and always having to walk 2 steps ahead of this person in order that you don't speak to somebody without getting accused, or you're not doing certain things. I think that played a part. And then the part that when he did use, even though we were together all the time, it was like it was always accusatory. You're looking at somebody, being with somebody, but you take me to work, you pick me up. When I got time to do. So I think that part of it, the domestic piece and just the stress of always trying to be a few steps ahead, kind of definitely dealt into that. And then the shame of it, because it's like, how did you get here? Like, how did you get in this place when life has always been decent. I didn't grow up where it was normal. You know what I'm saying? So how did you get here? So that piece and the shame of it for me probably played a lot.
Did that cause you to, the mental stress of it, did that cause you or push you at any point to use? I know you said it was really more so being with him, but um, was there ever a time where you used substances to cope with that stress?
Mm, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Deacon Rankin?
mine was when I was, even though when I was younger, I always dressed. Since I was young, I never knew no other way. But when I started using, I started falling off from that, and I just see myself in the mirror. I was like, "What happened to you?" I mean, why are you looking like this? And I used to look, I still looked okay, but to me, I looked like I was throwing myself away, and it bothered me mentally because I'm like, this is not who you are. You're not this type of person. Because I always type of person that say, I did what I did, but I used to mostly be by myself. But then, I'm like, why am I looking like this? What can I do to get myself, And it messed with my mental. It messed with my mental to whenever I thought about how I was looking, I would use, in fact, because I always had a job, I always worked. So when I got paid, I go use because I'm not liking what I'm looking. I'm not liking what I'm doing. But to cope with that, I get me a bottle of liquor, give me some liquor, wine, some beer, give me some crack, whatever at that time that I want to use. I went and got it. It made me feel like it made me feel like it numbed the pain of what I was doing to myself and how I was looking. But then, you know, it had to come to let's say it come to a point in time where okay, you know, this is my mental has got to get matched with my reality. That makes sense too.
I want to talk a little bit about supports. And Amara, you could chime in on this. Like, how can we support someone who is in addiction? And for you, Deacon Rankin and Miss Sharon, if there were things that were supportive for you, or maybe that wasn't, but you need it, like you can speak to that.
Um, I think the biggest thing is really just like breaking down, the stigma around addiction. Um, just like the stigma around mental health, um, and telling people, hey, if you need someone to go with you to a group, if you need me to go with you to therapy, that kind of thing. If you want me to go with you to church, if you feel uncomfortable, just is something different for you. Um, just being that person that's willing to, um, you know, go that extra step, make a little bit more effort um, with a person, um, because like both of them have said, a lot of times the first thing you do is start to isolate,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and so trying to get someone out of isolation, um, is a big part of it.
Miss
I think
Sharon.
um, definitely having someone that's non-judgmental that just lets you know that they're there. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have and not to beat you over the head, not to make you. I need you to go to a meeting, but just to be there. I know for me when I was uh I needed to go get away from him before he got taken away, and so I helped us to establish this transitional home years ago, and I went back to that particular place and asked them, could I come? And they told me no. And I was like, what? I mean, I helped establish it, but not only did I help establish how many nights I woke up to go get people to bring them this, but they told me no. And I think that definitely, I stayed out there a little bit long because if I'd have got away from him then, maybe I wouldn't have been out there as long. But I didn't. I stayed with him. Um, so definitely having people not to shut. It was not like I was asking to come to somebody's personal house. It was a empty house. No, nobody there. Well, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I guess having people that knew you before treat you like who they knew you to be before. You see what I'm saying? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Did you rank anything that you would name?
Well, mine would be don't become a codependent with me. And what I mean by that is this: my wife, you know, uh, she would talk with me about my addiction or whatever. You know, times she would get upset with me, but she never would beat me down with it. A lot of times, people that uh, that know somebody that's strung out on drugs or whatever, they would say to you, You need to get off those drugs. You ain't about a crackhead. You ain't about da. But they already know that. They already know they got that problem. So they don't need for you to iterate on that. You know,
Mm,
don't don't I don't need nobody. I didn't need no one to tell me that, but I didn't need no one to support me in it or say, you're gonna be okay. No, hold my feet to the fire. Say, listen, you can do this. You can stop it. And I had people to say, look, man, you can. Cause we were not. Mr. Chandler was one of them. And I never forget it. She said something to me one day, and I mean, something was going on, and she came back to me, and I was strung out. I mean, I had just got through smoking some crack. And she said, I want to apologize to you for what happened, the way I acted to a certain situation. I looked at her, I said, okay. But when I left, I'm like, man, she apologized to me, somebody like me. But that let me know that someone see me as a person, not as an addiction. You know, and
mm,
and and I would say that to anybody that's out there, they got somebody that's using or whatever. Don't beat them down, but don't support them in it. If they take their check or whatever and spend all their money and getting high, and they need gas money to get to work, no, you made your decision on spending your money getting high, so you got to figure that out. You're not mistreating them, but you're holding them accountable of what their actions, and you're not making them. You can't make they won't. You can make them. They're not feeling bad, but then they'll start thinking, I got to come with a better solution than this because simple fact, you know, how am I gonna get to work? What am I gonna do at this point? But if you keep giving it to them, if every time they spend their money, you keep giving them money, then they're not seeing where they're going wrong. They always will come to you with the same thing, and that problem will always be there. So I would say, hold them accountable. You know, treat them with love, but don't beat them down.
that's good. That's good. That's good. All right, y'all. It is 7:56. Omar, I'm gonna give you last words, and in those last words, if you would, maybe drop some resources for the people out there who may be looking for ways to support themselves or someone else.
Well, thank you again for the invitation. Had a lot of fun up here tonight, hearing the testimonies, um, a lot of stuff that I'm taking away, from the conversation. Um, Resources, um, you know, if you go online now, you actually can find it's like NA groups .com, I believe is what it's called. But if you go up there, they'll give you like resources as far as like local self-help groups that you can attend that are, within 10, 15 minutes, wherever you're at in the entire country. Um, a lot of information now about group meetings is posted online, um, which is really beneficial. And there's also I know there's an app that you can actually put on your phone also, that'll give you local uh, self-help groups. And I'll get that information to Crystal. So if you want to share that,
For
uh,
sure.
so people can have that because everybody's always got their phone with them. And then, I think the Bible app is a great resource just to have on your phone. I know for me, you get like a scripture a day, uh, and you'll never know when that scripture, something's going on, um, it will hit you, right in the feels for whatever you're dealing with at that time.
Yeah.
Just little stuff like that. Um, that's that's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you, Omari, for joining us. Thank you, Miss Sharon and Deacon Rankin. I appreciate your transparency and your vulnerability tonight with us. Thank you, everyone, again for joining us. Come back. We got 2 more Thursdays to go. We're still continuing the conversation Next week, we're going to talk about forgiveness. The last 2 weeks, forgiveness. So join in, because there is a connection between our mental health, our emotions, and forgiveness. It ties together. So come check that out. At this time, we're going to shift into the ways to give. You can pay your tithe tonight. You can sow into our apostle tonight. The ways to give are on the screen. And we thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. Have a good night, everyone.
Good
Bye.
night.
Right.